Hi there, this is Mujtaba Ahmad, and you are watching my O levels lecture series on biology, and the syllabus code for this syllabus is 5090. Really, this is the continuation of the previous lecture where we were talking about cell structure, and its function. So, really, we have up till now looked upon at the structures, at the various subcellular structures that are contained within both an animal as well as a plant cell, and we have also looked at the specimens that are seen under a light microscope, and also the electron micrographs of the both the animal as well as a plant cell, and now we are ready to take a look at the structures which are really unique to a plant cell. So without further ado, I continue with with today's lecture, and we guess what, this is what you already know what we are going to learn. So really, these are the three most important, rather the three or subcellular structures which are really different and are only found within a plant cell, not in an animal cell, and we are going to discuss these. Also, we will be taking up the structure of a bacterial cell as well, and we will be discussing how the various subcellular structures and components that are contained within the bacterial cell help it perform its functioning and its and carrying out its normal processes in life. So the first structure, as you say, is the cell wall. So really, cell wall is an extra layer of structural support and protection outside the cell membrane of plant cells. So remember, we saw that cell membrane is the outermost boundary of an animal cell, but the but a plant cell has an additional layer which is surrounding or is really coated around its or around the plant cell, and it's really lying outside towards the environment, and it's really upon the cell membrane. So really, it's sort of extra surveillance sort of structure, and it really deals with the mechanisms of protection, and it really supports a cell, particularly a plant cell, really throughout its life, throughout its functioning, and carrying its various functions that are required by a plant cell. Other than that, you must be able to really understand that the presence of cell wall is what makes a plant cell bear the harsh conditions, really the tough conditions of environment. So really, the wood, if you have seen, it's really made up of it's really quite hard, and lignin is deposited, and various other subcellular differences are also present within a plant cell as compared to an animal cell. So it's made up of a cell wall, and cell wall is in turn made up of cellulose. So cellulose is nothing but really a polymer. So various polymer, remember, poly means many, and polymer is a combination of many simpler monomers. Monomers are single unit sugar molecules. So cellulose is a polymer of a type of sugars, polymer type of sugars. Really, it means because cellulose comprises of repetition or repeated molecules of beta glucose that are connected to one another, and they are connected in such an orderly fashion, an orderly manner, that it enables a plant cell wall to withstand really tough conditions, withstand pressure from the inside, withstand harsh conditions from the outside as well. The structural support of cell walls allows plant cells to grow to great heights like pine trees. Wood is made of the reminded cellulose fibers of cell walls after the death of mature xylem tissues of woody plants. So xylem tissues are contained within these woody plants, and we will be taking a look at that as well when we will be studying transport in plants as well. So Robert Hooke, who came up with the idea of cell, or discovered the term or discovered these small building blocks of life known as cell. In 1660s, he was actually looking at the dead plant cells cell wall in thin cutting of cork. So really cell walls are quite easily visualized under a light microscope, and therefore these were really the cell walls were the first ones to be really visualized by Robert Hooke, who discovered the cells. So on your right side of the screen, you see the plant cells in comparison to an animal cell. So an animal cell, if you see, are really quite disordered or really in random sort of shape or structure, but on the other hand, plant cells, as I also showed you this sort of a specimen diagram in the first topic, in the first lecture, that related to plant cells, that related to this basics of plant cells and cells chapter. So really these cells are in orderly manner and orderly fashion. That's because of the presence of this cell wall. So cell wall, you see that cell wall is an added sort of a structure or added sort of support and protection to a plant cell, and then comes underneath it the cell membrane. On the other hand, an animal cell only has this cell membrane, and remember that cell membrane is really a fluid sort of a structure, and it's not really really rigid, and it does not assumes fixed structure and fixed shape. So that's why plant cells are seen as ordered and in perfect manner when seen under a light microscope. This you see on your right side of your screen is a large circular structure, bag-like structure, and it's called a vacuole. And vacuole is a membrane bound organelle. So let me take out my pen, and it's really a membrane bound organelle that contains a mass of fluid. So what mass of fluid does it contain? It contains all sorts of ions, other waste ions, waste toxic substances that are contained within this bag sort of structure. So this is really responsible in maintaining equilibrium as well, because these vacuoles also store excess water, excess ions that are really not required by a cell at a particular time. This is cell sap, and then tonoplast is the outermost boundary that surrounds the vacuole. Large central vacuole is only present in plant cells, and it serves as a storage space for plant cells. As I told you, it can store a variety of nutrients that includes minerals, sugars, amino acids, nucleic acids, ions, and special chemicals that a cell might need to survive. So really it also stores essential ions that might be required by a plant cell. It functions as a reservoir for cell to store excess water. That's also an important point. I must have forgotten to highlight it in green. The amount of water in the vacuole will determine cell's turgor pressure. This we will see in osmosis as well. The hydrostatic pressure that against cell wall. So this is really the hydrostatic pressure that a cell when a cell pushes it against its cell wall from inside. A drooping plant has lost most of its water and the vacuoles are shrinking. So we will see plasmolysis. It's called plasmolysis in case of a plant cell, and we will see these terms again when we visit the second or the third topic of this syllabus. We will be studying about osmosis and diffusion as well, and active transport as well. They will be comparing an animal cell and a plant cell in terms of its structure as well. So really this knowledge would also be refreshed at that point of time, I believe. This is the organelle that's really important, and it's like really solar system, solar energy sort of system for a plant cell. Remember that plant cells and plants are really autotrophic in nature. I guess they are called autotrophic because autotrophic are those that are able to synthesize their own food. Anyways, I wanted to make the point that plants are the living organisms, are the living beings that are able to synthesize their own food from sunlight, and that you know as well, I guess. So it has various subcellular organelles that are contained within itself. And these organelles or these subcellular structures are really involved in the synthesis of energy, in the synthesis of the food by taking energy from the sunlight. So chloroplasts have a thylakoid and outer, so it really has its own DNA as well. It has ribosome for protein synthesis, starch granule, starch is the form of food storage in the plant, thylakoid space. So really we do not need to remember in detail about the structure of the chloroplast, but you do need to remember the function. So it conducts photosynthesis and produce energy for the plant cells, by the way. It's exclusively involved and takes care of a plant cells in terms of preparation of energy because of the presence of various subcellular or smaller components that are contained within itself. These thylakoid space, this thylakoid, this outer membrane, inner membrane, ribosome, these all are involved in the process of production of energy, by which is initially started off by the hitting of sunlight and excitation of an electron, and that's really the light dependent and light independent reactions detail. That's not a topic at the moment. So really chloroplasts convert light energy of the sun into sugars that can be used up by cells at the time the reaction produces oxygen and consumes carbon dioxide. Chloroplasts consist of many stacks of sac structures called thylakoid system, and the molecules of chlorophyll absorb sun locate inside the thylakoid sacs. So really sunlight is able to excite an electron which is contained within this structure, and then the complete procedure of light dependent reaction proceeds, and then light independent reaction proceeds, which allows it to generate energy. And that's really a quite detailed procedure, but I thought that I would mention, and that would also make good sense to you. And the structure is completely related to its function as well, as we have seen that all other structures are also related to their own functions. They also play a part in innate immunity of a plant. So innate immunity is basically the immunity that is contained within an organism. So really a plant cell has its own immune system as well, so that is probably a new thing for you to learn, but chloroplast also plays an important role in that one as well. So these were the three things, or the three subcellular structures that I wanted you to understand, differentiate a plant cell from an animal cell in terms of subcellular organelles. Really you do not need to remember the structures, but you really do need to understand the functions of these organelles, and remember that these are only found within a plant cell and not an animal cell. So now we will take a look at a bacterial cell, which is a prokaryotic cell, and the animal cell and the plant cells were the examples of a eukaryotic cell. So a prokaryotic cell is one that does not contain a well defined nucleus, and we'll see how a bacterial cell is different from either the plant as well as an animal cell, and it's really a microorganism, a microbe basically, and it's really a minute organism. And up till now you must have heard that bacteria are only dangerous, that they are really responsible for causing diseases and causing harm to humanity, but really they are not. Only rather they are also involved in various industrial processes. Various procedures of genetic engineering have been achieved, have been studied, have been learned by scientists because of the bacterial cells, because the bacterial cell is really quite simple, and we were able to apply those studies then to complex multicellular organisms such as animals and plants and humans as well. So really there are also quite a lot of benefits of this bacterial cell as well. That's the thing that I wanted to mention before we started to study of bacterial cell. So really this picture shows the structure of a bacterial cell. This tail like structure is called a flagellum, and it's really responsible for imparting or allowing a bacteria to swim. Then these are pilus, these are thread like structures. This is basically a diagram that is more relevant to your syllabus, and it mentions that the outermost boundary is covered with a capsule. Then it also has a cell wall and a plasma membrane like an plant cell, and then there is nucleoid, a ribosome for protein synthesis, and plasmids are what are quite new for you guys, and we'll be looking at the function of these important organelles as well. So again, this is a diagram that shows the structure of a bacterial cell. So it has cell wall, which is responsible for imparting overall strength through the cell, and it also helps to maintain the cell shape, which is important for how the cell will grow, reproduce, obtain nutrients and move. Remember that bacteria are everywhere, virtually everywhere. They are in extreme and harsh environments as well. So really they are able to swim, as I told you, that by the presence of flagellum they can swim. They are in human bodies, they are in an environment as well, and they obtain their nutrition from the environment as well, and they also reproduce by the virtue of their cell wall. So cell wall is also involved in the reproduction, because when two bacterial cells come together they conjugate, and conjugation tube is formed, and then they link together, and a whole procedure of transfer of genetic material takes place. And but that's really an extra bit of information for you guys to understand that it's also the cell wall of a bacterial cell is particularly important for the procedure of reproduction in case of a bacterial cell, and it also is responsible for nutrition, because nutrition and movement, and its stability as well, because it is then able to withstand extreme, as I told you, it's present in extreme and harsh environments as well. So really cell wall has quite a lot to do in a bacterial cell as well, and these are the 3-4 points that I've highlighted them in green. So cytoplasm is also contained within a bacterial cell, and it's, remember, it's like gel-like matrix composed of water, enzymes, nutrients, wastes and gases, and contains cell structures as ribosome, chromosome and plasmids. So plasmids is what we are going to see. Various important cellular structures are carried in cytoplasm. This is quite similar to what we already saw in a previous lecture, where we try to illustrate it with an example of an aquarium. So really this is the new thing for you guys. Plasmid is a small circular double-stranded DNA molecule that is distinct from a cell's chromosomal DNA. Remember, it's not a part of chromosomal DNA. It's separate from the chromosomal DNA, and it has other purposes. So it's really relevant to its so it really is relevant to a bacterial survival in harsh conditions and in harsh environments. Plasmids naturally exist in bacterial cells, and they also occur in some eukaryotes as well. Often these genes carried in plasmids provide bacteria with genetic advantages such as antibiotic resistance. So I told you that extreme or abnormal conditions, bacteria can survive because of this plasmid, which is a circular stranded DNA, and it has genes that allows it to produce or to respond to harsh or extreme environmental conditions. So if for example if a bacterial cell is found in salt mines or in a place where salt is very rich, then it would be able to survive only because of the presence of the genes, of the very genes that are contained on its plasmid DNA. So plasmid DNA contains in short the genes that allow bacterial cells to survive really harsh or tough environmental conditions, and antibiotic resistance is also an abnormality or really a harsh condition for bacteria, or a new condition for bacteria. And plasmids do have a role in genetic engineering, molecular biology, The bacteria really are a really important tool of genetic engineering as well. So that was what we were supposed to cover from that part of your syllabus, and in the next lecture we'll see this organization, how human cells and how human organisms or how other organisms, living organisms, are organized, and we'll see the term cells, tissue, organ system and organism, and we'll be using a formula of magnification that we'll see in detail in the next lecture as well. So guys, in this lecture video we covered the structures which are found only in a plant cell but not in an animal cell. Then we saw the structure of a typical bacterial cell and how bacterial cell differs from a plant and an animal cell. Important point in that was the presence of plasmids. So plasmids DNA, which are not a part of chromosomal DNA of a bacterial cell, are absolutely important because they allow it to resist antibiotics, to resist harsh conditions, to extreme conditions as well. That was all from my side for today's lecture, and I hope you liked the lecture. If there were any slips of tongues or any mistakes, you can always let me know, and happy learning till next time, and goodbye from my side, and we'll see each other, and I'll see you in my next lecture video. Till then, take care and a goodbye from my side. Thank you very much.